Hi, Jane Gilgun. A little bit about me. I'm a professor at the University of Minnesota. I did child welfare practice for several years, and it was all in permanency planning. I arranged for terminations of parental rights with 5 children. I came back to school to get my PhD because I was so concerned about lack of information about the issues that families and children in child welfare. And so the fact that I'm presenting to all of you means a great deal to me.
And I am Tina Barr. I'm a PhD candidate in social work at the University of Minnesota, and my practice experience is mostly with juveniles who are involved in the juvenile justice system, but I also have experience working with children in foster care, children who experience sexual abuse who are foster children, as well as the families who adopted these children. Also have some research experience, and my dissertation area is in the area of wrongful convictions and exonerations.
At the Coleman School, which is in Baltimore, and it's in a high crime, low income area. Of course, just because it's high crime doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of well-functioning families in that area. We need to keep that in mind. But twice a day at the Coleman School in Baltimore, more than 300 students take place in what's called the Mindful Moments program. And there is information on the internet about the Mindful Moments program. And they learn to breathe, stretch, and block out distractions, and they also learn other kinds of mindfulness-based practices like yoga and meditation techniques. And the principal, who's Carolyn Thompson, said that this Mindful Moments program has made a great difference at the school. They actually taught the students how to redirect negative energy into something positive. And she said as a result of this, it's only been for 3 years that they've had this, they have 0 suspensions. Now you know that inner city schools, it's a huge problem that so many kids, especially kids of color, are expelled from school. And then when students fight or misbehave at Coleman, they're not sent to the principal's office. Instead, they're sent to the Mindful Me room, where they are taught to resolve conflicts peacefully and to teach each other what they've learned. And they also do yoga, meditation, and a lot of activity.
So mindfulness is a state of consciousness. It's the state of being acutely aware of what's going on around you. It's paying attention to your bodily sensations, your perceptions, your emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. And it's paying attention in a way without bringing judgment about anything that you're aware of. And so it's also not ruminating or dwelling on things that have happened in the past, or anticipating or worrying about things that might happen in the future. It's being present and being in the moment. And so I know I can get like this, but sometimes there's so much going on in my brain. Can we attest to that, everybody? And so that's the opposite of mindfulness. When there's so much, you're thinking about so much, everything you need to do, the things that you're concerned about, your family, your job, other things, that it's kind of like you have a cluttered mind. And so that's the opposite of mindfulness. So the goal of mindfulness-based practices is to develop the capacities for self-regulation. And so once that is developed, as opposed to seeing a child who's dysregulated and you see the physical symptoms we talked about earlier, you can see a child who is more relaxed, who has a clearer mind, is able to articulate clearly, and so that's the overall goal. And so teaching mindfulness-based practices to children who have experienced trauma will help develop this capacity.
What actually happens is when we do mindfulness-based practices, that we have a regulated brain that we experience as a clear mind. I mean, if we're working, for example, with traumatized children and families, we want to have a clear mind about what to do and how to be helpful. And also, and this is Vanderkook, who's a wonderful researcher, and I recommend him very much, Bessel van der Kolk, talks about how trauma is contained in the body. You can ask people where they're feeling their trauma in their body, and they can tell you. Because these are the mental representations that we can have in our lives when we're feeling dysregulated. We're full of energy and dysregulated thoughts. And if kids are going to develop long-term mindfulness and capacities for self-regulation, the capacities to anticipate consequences and capacities for empathy. They need to be surrounded by mindful people. So the ideal mindfulness-based program for kids who have experienced complex trauma is to work with parents so that parents become more mindful. We social workers have to become more mindful. So if kids in school, if they're going to learn mindfulness-based practices, or if you're going to be part of a system, like child protection workers can influence schools, they have to understand that the principal has to know about mindfulness-based practice and hopefully practice it. The teachers have to know about mindfulness-based practices and practice it. That's what happened in the Coleman School. Everybody in that system, including the janitor was talking about mindfulness-based practices and how he knows how to handle the children. Well, and then peers, of course. I mean, you can have a little kid, learn all these mindfulness-based practices, and you send them outside into the neighborhood, and the other kids have no idea what mindfulness is. That kid is going to find it very hard to keep a mindfulness orientation, to keep their brain regulated. So we have to think in terms of systems. What is going on in that child's life? Who else can support a mindfulness-based practice for the children?
Some activities and exercises that you can practice. And some of you may already be doing this, and so I realized years ago, before I understood what mindfulness was, I was already doing some of these things, but I had not studied mindfulness or heard a lot about it, so I didn't understand kind of the research or the logic behind what I was doing. So these are things that many of you probably are already doing.